An Empire of Ice and Fire by Longclaw 1-6. Chapter 5. Falling. Elbowing his way through the crowd of dirty, swearing smallfolk, Jon stood out from the drab yellows and browns by the dark grey leather of the north. No one paid him any heed. Everyone seemed to be going about their own business. Such suited him fine. Eyes watching the massive grain ships in the harbour, filled to the brim for carhold. All he wanted was some fresh air. Time away from the manse. From her. The woman I cannot ever have. Bile rose in his throat and his heart clenched at the thought. Dany. When did they last talk? A week before? Longer? He hoped by now the pain of leaving her would be less. He knew such to be a lie. Every moment with her, every bit of levity and happiness, only stoked the desire for more in his heart. Oh, how he wished that it was he was preparing to wed. That he would be gifted such a beauty, the most breathtaking, amazing girl in the known world. Any man would fall in love with her in an instant. But I cannot afford to. Jon wished he could be allowed to love Daenerys Targaryen. But she belonged to someone else, was a high-born Valyrian, when he was just simply a northern bastard. No matter how good he could ever be, simply being that made him unworthy of her, even if she does feel the same way. But even a bastard could dream. Dreams of two brilliant violet eyes, the ones that haunted his dreams even now, before he had to let her go. Through no weirwood tree stood south of the Vale. Jon remembered how to pray to the old gods. Please, let us be together. I will give you anything, even my life, to be with her. A moment of weakness, one he was not proud of. But even now he felt, though, that she was worth it. Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen. Dany. Mind still on her, unable to stop the smile from forming on his face, Jon didn't notice the person approaching him until he stumbled into them. Oof! Nimble footwork kept him upright, but he flushed red with embarrassment as he moved to help the figure up from the dusty stone. His hands closed around dainty female fingers. Forgive me, my lady. I wasn't paying attention. It is all right, Jon Snow. Jon stopped in his tracks, eyes widening as he stared into the eyes of the hooded figure. My name is Kinvara. Yes, I know your name, and the one on your mind. She is a lovely woman. The woman pulled back her hood, revealing a younger girl, with pretty raven hair, golden eyes with a reddish tint, and a slightly bulbous nose. Breathtakingly gorgeous, yet not as beautiful as Dany, in Jon's opinion. What? What do you want? He wasn't used to such attention. Hell's, even Dany's attention often perplexed the young bastard. What I want is not to come to pass for a long, long time. But I know it involves you and your sweetheart. Which is why the strange woman took a long bundle from under her cloak and thrust it into Jon's chest. This is for you, a perfect gift for your lady love. Do not worry, Jon Snow. You will have yours soon enough. Jon just stared at her. The night is dark and full of terrors, but you shall be the light. Before Jon could respond, she was gone, disappeared into the bustle of the market. Hefting the package, pulling back the red cloth that covered it, the item underneath glinted in the sun. His eyes widened. Who would willingly part with this? Someone mad. But all Jon could figure out was how perfect the gift from the strange woman actually was. Two servants placed a large chest onto the floor of Valyria's solace. Daenerys stared at it quietly, unsure of what to say. Her brother didn't have the same qualms. What is this? A wedding gift for the future Khaleesi, boomed the merchant, hands clutching his plump belly. Something that is quite worthy, and something that is worth quite a lot to those of House Targaryen. The only thing that matters to me is getting my army and my throne back." Viserys hissed. In all honesty, Daenerys had barely heard a word her brother had said. All her mind was focused on was either what had happened only a few days before, or trying to forget what had happened. Just remembering the words from her likely former friend's mouth made her heart feel like it had been run through by a sword. Dany couldn't take it, even for the blood of the dragon. It was too much. But when Illyrio opened the chest, her mind cleared up, eyes drawn to what was nestled within. "Dragon eggs, princess," Illyrio proclaimed, "from the Shadowlands beyond Ashai. While time has turned them into stone, they are still beautiful. The perfect gift for a Targaryen." Mesmerized by them, Dany stared upon the eggs, reaching out to touch them. Swirling patterns on the stone called out to her to be held, but just as her hands moved to them, Viserys snarled and shut the chest. "Do you think I care about stones? Dragons are gone, extinct. We need something that will help us, like the slave I bought for my sister, who will teach her how to please the Khal in bed." For Daenerys, her eyes merely widened in horror. There it was, the certainty of her future brought back in an onrushing bull mammoth. She was to be married to the Dothraki Khal, sold like a common slave, by her brother nonetheless, the last family she had left. Of the sweet boy of their childhood nothing remained. Madness had set in, leaving him cold and obsessed with power. Her discomfort and grief wasn't even noticed by him. "You must listen to your future king, Daenerys. He possesses all the intelligence that is lacking in a mere woman." He ran his hand across her cheek. It was revolting to the touch, clammy and cold. "I know how to play a man like Drogo. I give him a queen. He gives me an army." "I don't want to be his queen," she blurted quietly, almost a whisper. It just slipped out. Part of her, the confidence her time with the Northerner taught her, rushed to the surface, only to die down upon being reminded of where she was and whom she spoke to. Under his piercing gaze, she retreated into her usual meekness. "I want Jon." She wanted Jon. "I want to go home." "I do too." Viserys had a puzzled smirk on his face, as if he was surprised she said such a stupid thing, but too dense to read between the lines. "I want us both to go home, but we can only do so at the head of an army. Khal Drogo's army." His hand returned to her cheek, stroking it. It made Dany nauseous. Once resigned to having to marry him to keep the bloodline strong, compared to one kiss from Jon, she found she could not do it. Her brother's lack of concern for her only solidified her inner disgust. "I would let his whole tribe fuck you. Them and their horses, for that army, sweet sister." Feeling his lips upon her forehead, soon Dany found herself alone in her room. Totally and completely alone, as she was for most of her life. Running to the chest, Daenerys opened it, grabbing an egg one at a time, sliding to the ground, wrapping them in her arms protectively around her chest. Dany fought back tears that threatened to form. Once again denied even the littlest comfort from another. She missed the moments she had with Jon. A connection existed between them, one that didn't make sense to her, but it was there. Daenerys knew it, and was certain the certain raven-haired wolf knew it as well. My wolf. The feeling of the eggs gave her warmth, but sobs still racked her. She needed his comfort, his words of wisdom and kindness, but they weren't available. After their kiss, the happiest moment in her life, he had fled thanks to his insecurities. She cried for what had hurt him so. "You are not a bastard to me." No one around her. The words were lost to the silence. While nowhere near as cunning as the Master of Whisperers, The cloaked figure stalked through the slums of Pentos, and managed to use the sources of his own to find the exact address of the person he was seeking, among other far more juicy tidbits of information. Confident, he gently rapped on the rotting wooden door. Sounds of steps and groans came from inside. "What?" An irate Jorah Mormont ground out before pushing roughly into his room. Previously fast asleep, he was wide awake now. Anyone would have been with a sharp blade pressed against their throat. "Please, I don't have much money." The figure drew back his cloak to reveal Eddard Stark, hard steel in his grey eyes. "It is not money that I am after, Mormont," he said evenly. Jorah sighed. He had expected this might happen ever since running into the Warden of the North at Illyrio's mansion. The disgraced noble made his peace. "Go ahead, my lord," he said respectfully. "Carry out my sentence. I submit to your justice." "I am not going to kill you for that, Mormont," Ned rasped, keeping his voice low but the blade firm. "However, I know the real reason why you are offering your services to the Targaryens." He smirked darkly. "You intend to sell information to Robert Baratheon for a royal pardon." Eyes widening, Jorah racked his brains for what could have tipped Stark off. He found nothing. "What is your business, if I did?" he croaked, sweat pouring from his brow. "You hate the Targaryens as much as he does." I hate the Mad King with all my heart and soul. But the Mad King is dead." Deciding it was time, he lessened the hold he kept on Jorah's neck. "The girl is innocent, Mormont. No harm can come to her." That can't be the true reason. A voice in his head told him it was a bad idea to press his tormentor. But he was curious, and Ned weakening the sword's hold made him bold. This went beyond honor. Ned closed his eyes, and when they opened, Jorah was shocked to find pure emotion. Grief. "Long ago, I promised one I loved with all my heart that I would protect someone." An image flashed before his eyes, of a laughing Jon, happy and at ease for the first time in his life. He was with Daenerys, sparring with her. There was no doubt in his mind she was the cause of his happiness. Denial was counterproductive. Jon had found his dragon, as Lyanna had found hers. He was far too late and far too trusting to protect her. But he could and would protect Jon, in totality. "And I am fulfilling that promise, though it has now expanded in scope." He took a deep breath. "I am offering you a chance to redeem yourself." This Jorah did not expect. Here was a chance to not just go back home, but a chance to atone for his shame, to make his family and father proud again. No royal pardon could do so, but a pardon from the Warden of the North could. "What must I do?" The decision was easy. "First, let me say this. I always liked you, Jorah. You were honourable and good, which is why it pained everyone in the North when you did what you did." His eyes met Jorah's, sheathing the sword back into its scabbard. "Do you regret it?" "Every day." There was nothing Jorah wanted more than to take it all back. "Good." Ned rested a hand on the battered table, leaning on it. "There are things I know. Things only I can bear. But that does not mean others can be useful to me in this." He steeled himself. "The wedding will not happen, Jorah." Jorah blinked. Why? He knew what wedding Ned was referring to. Why would he take pity on the Targaryen girl? "Princess Daenerys." He met the disgraced Mormont's eyes again. "I suggest you refer to her by her true title." There was no arguing with this tone. Jorah nodded. "I will not let Princess Daenerys be raped by that savage. She will be leaving here, far away from here, but you are to stay with the Dothraki and wait." Sitting across from him, Jorah narrowed his eyes in confusion. Wait for what? You will know what it is when the time happens. It may be months, it may be years, but you are to stay with the Khalasar until my instructions come. Follow them, and you will get your pardon. Ned raised an eyebrow. Do we have a deal? Jorah nodded, sealing it with a clasp of hands. This is a rather sexual scene, so I will be glossing over some of the nastier bits, but basically it's when Dorea teaches Dany how to be sexual. Love comes at the eyes. Does it? Remembering a pair of grey orbs boring into her soul, Dany began to appreciate the words. Perhaps she is right. Wait, the woman said. You almost said another name, not to your intendeds. Her eyes flashed with interest. So there is someone else you were lost for, and yet your skill is that of a prudish Westerosi spinster. She giggled at Daenerys' half glare. If you have made love before, then you wouldn't be taking this inexperienced Khaleesi. So I take it he is one that takes what he wants when he wants as well. What? No! By now Daenerys felt like she was beet red, as if covered in dust from the red wastes. I've never done that. No? Such a shame for your preferred lover. You are a rare beauty, Daenerys of House Targaryen. Carefully stepping off of her, Dorea readjusted her skirt. It is too bad, Khaleesi, that you have not known a lover before. At least then you would know what true affection is. Daenerys blinked back a tear. I know, but it cannot be. Climbing off of her, Dorea only smiled, placing a comforting hand on Daenerys' shoulder. If you are to marry the Khal, all they care about is fertility. Purity means nothing compared to bearing strong sons. If I were you, I'd find the man you fancy and have him. But trust me, Khaleesi, it is better when someone you love is your first. Don't let the chance slip away. With that, Dorea left, shutting the door behind her. The handmaiden's words played back in her mind. Daenerys thought of Jon. Her Jon. The northern warrior that swept her up into her life and made her feel loved, like the most beautiful woman in the world. He doesn't want me, she thought bitterly. She quickly composed herself. I am the blood of the dragon. If any person was capable of being decisive action, it was Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen. Standing, she made her way out of the room. She knew what she wanted, and she would obtain it no matter what. Every muscle aching, Jon collapsed onto the bed. Illyrio kept his house stocked with plenty of fresh water, all available at a call for a servant, and for this Jon was grateful. Even with the sea breeze, the heat was overpowering. The cool water felt welcome on his skin, hair damp from both sweat and where he splashed water on it to cool. Changing into a clean tunic, he allowed himself the moment of recovery following his mid-afternoon training session. He was exerting himself past mere exertion. Unlike someone like Theon Greyjoy, Jon wasn't dense enough to deny the undeniable. Pushing himself to the breaking point every day turned his muscles to limp rags by dinner. And if he kept it up, only trouble would result. But Jon needed the solace training provided, needed the escape venting his anger through his sword gave him, needed to get the image of her devastation out of his mind, needed to get her out of his mind. You deserve more than a bastard. Words still as true as they were when first spoken, Jon's heart ached for having to turn her away, from breaking what had been his only real connection to a person, not his family. She was just my friend. Nothing more. He had to believe it. To believe the kiss meant nothing. It haunted his dreams. How much he wanted her. But he knew it was for the best. Hearing a loud thump on his door, Jon blinked the tiredness from his eyes and rose, wincing at the soreness. Expecting his father, his mouth dropped at the sight of the very person that haunted his thoughts so. Daenerys? Out of my way! Without so much as a greeting, the silver-blonde goddess pushed her way past him and into the room. Her lips pursed in a determined scowl, jaw set in determination. She looked angry. She looked breathtaking. Oh, how he wanted to take her in his arms and kiss her over and over again. Jon willed that desire to the recesses of his mind. You shouldn't be here. Not alone in my chambers. The princess literally growled. Blood of the dragon. Don't you dare tell me where I can and cannot be, Jon Snow. Whereas once it was like a vice on her heart, now his sadness and insecurity spewed forth in anger deep within inside her. Dany would not let him do this. Not let him think this way about himself. She would make him see the truth if it killed her. Why have you been avoiding me, Jon? He fought to be emotionless, cold. You know why. This is not proper. Though unladylike, the noise Daenerys made clearly expressed her opinion of that statement. Tuh! Stop lying. I am Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen. The regal thunder she spoke with shocked her. She never spoke in this manner to anyone. Back to Viserys' hand making acquaintance with her cheek for far less. You will tell me the truth. He remained silent, looking away. Dany would not stand for this. Tell me, she said in a softer yet steeled tone, stepping closer until she was looking upon his face. The violet drew Jon in like a magnet. They were filled with steel, anger, and pain. If he looked deep enough, though, he could see the pain he caused her. It tore him in two. I am sorry, Dany, but it was for the best. Daenerys scoffed. You can't possibly think that. I'm a bastard, Dany. Do not speak of yourself so lowly. It is the truth. He exhaled with a heavy heart, only to see his hand encased by hers, the other cupping his cheek, causing a wave of silence to descend upon the room. It was as if time stood still, only the two of them remaining in the world. Moving forward, Daenerys melded her lips onto his in a sweet kiss. It was electric, warming her wonderfully while still hurting her heart that this was the most they could do. She wanted this man more than anything, but could never have him beyond that night. But Dany could still make sure he never thought himself badly again. If this was what it came out of this, she'd be content. You listen to me, Jon Snow. You are not defined by your birth. You have a noble heart, just like your father. And though it warmed his heart to hear the woman that had so enchanted him since his arrival praise him so, her statement still seemed to ring hollow. And what does that all give me? No matter how good I become, I will always be a bastard. You will always be the man that means so much to me. He blinked. Dany. No, you have done so much for me, simply by being here. I know it has been short. I know that. She bit back the crushing, painful truth. I will never regret meeting you, Jon. She couldn't say it. It would only hurt both of them, even though she knew he likely felt the same. Please, don't ruin this last bit of time we have together. Let us just have this. Opening his mouth to respond, Jon fought against it. She was right. They did have so little time together. I can't do this to her. Let her suffer more. Part of him felt like he did deserve this. Was a good person. If only that the amazing creature that was Daenerys Targaryen thought so. Smiling, he kissed her again, this time just as passionately as their first. Feeling her heart burst, Dany melted into the kiss. Soon the two of them fell sideways onto the bed, soon enough nestled together. Jon on his back, Dany cuddled up against him. Sorry, Dany. I really... Shh. Dany enjoyed his embrace. The feeling of that pure calm and contentment that had been so lacking in the last few days was back, even more so. She didn't want to think about the future, about a time when she was going to have to let this man go. Dany had her duty, and Jon had his honour. Best not to think about it. You really should wear more proper clothes in this weather, Jon Snow. A snort left Jon's face. It was just such a random topic, but he appreciated it. He didn't wish to think about leaving Dany as much as she did, apparently. I like my clothes, Daenerys Stormborn. They suit me, and I can tolerate the heat and sweat. That's not what I've seen, Dany giggled, patting the young man's chest. Such a firm chest. Not as muscled as Drogo, but well suited to his frame. And I can't say I wouldn't enjoy seeing you bare-chested. It felt downright naughty, but Daenerys knew that Jon Snow was the only one who could get her to this undignified, flirty sedate. Just a feeling. Of course you would, he chuckled. Taking the initiative, he guided her chin up and kissed her on the lips. Dany moaned, spurring him to deepen it. This feeling was indescribable. Once he pulled away, the silver-haired princess remained in a haze for several more moments, before blinking it away. I refuse to believe there is no girl in Winterfell waiting for you. A kiss like that must have been honed by practice. Not having been kissed before, she still knew through instinct, though, who was a good kisser, and Jon Snow definitely was. Jon shook his head, playing with a strand of silver hair. You were my first kiss, my lady. A blush rose, colouring his cheeks, feeling a bit embarrassed. Melting, Dany looked at him with longing. Gods, could this man get any more attractive to me? She leaned up and pecked his cheeks, and his lips again. I'm glad, Jon Snow. Leaning down, he kissed the crown of her head. You should head back to your rooms, Dany. Prince Viserys would not take well if he discovered you here. Dany shook her head. Her eyes whispered. Basically, Dany asks Jon for sex, and they do it together. And yeah, I'm going to end it there. Getting a little steamy there. Oh, these crazy kids. What can you do? I'm sorry if some of you are disappointed by my cutting that short, but frankly, I'm uncomfortable reading that. Though admittedly, I am happy for the characters. They are just so sweet. And Dany finally letting loose her own inner dragon. Yes. Girl power. As many people will know, I support Daenerys. She is my queen. If Jon's her king, so much the better. Anyway, remember to like, comment and subscribe. Hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye.